The council chamber of the Galactic Federation buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different species gathered around the massive crystal table. Holographic displays showed the same troubling data from every angle. A small blue planet in the outer spiral arm of the galaxy had somehow managed to split the atom and launch primitive rockets into space. Ambassador Zexthul of the Korthani Empire slammed his four-armed fist on the table, causing the smaller representatives to jump. His scaled hide rippled with agitation as he spoke through his translator device. This is exactly what we feared would happen. The humans have reached the nuclear threshold. We all know what comes next. The diminutive Pixari delegate, barely 3 feet tall with large black eyes, squeaked in terror. The historical records are clear. Every species that reaches nuclear capability without guidance destroys itself within 50 cycles. We should quarantine their system and wait for the inevitable. But Elder Morvac of the ancient Zephyrian race slowly shook his massive head. His people had been spacefaring for over 10,000 years, long enough to witness the rise and fall of countless civilizations. You are all missing the point. I have studied these humans for decades through our long-range sensors. They are different from any species we have encountered. Different how? Asked Captain Vorthak of the Hegemony Warfleet. His predatory features showed skepticism as he leaned forward. They fight constant wars among themselves. They pollute their own planet. They create weapons capable of destroying all life on their world. How exactly are they different from the other failed species? Morvac's ancient eyes dimmed as he accessed his vast memory banks. 300 years ago, their entire planet was ravaged by a plague that killed millions. Instead of abandoning the weak, they cared for the sick at great personal risk. When massive earthquakes destroyed their cities, strangers traveled across vast distances to help rebuild. During their greatest war, soldiers threw themselves on explosive devices to save their comrades. The room fell silent. Such behavior was almost unheard of among the galactic community. Most species followed strict survival protocols that prioritized the strong and abandoned the weak during times of crisis. Furthermore, Morvac continued, their rate of technological advancement is unprecedented. In just 200 years, they went from crude steam engines to splitting atoms. Their mathematics and engineering capabilities rival our own, despite having no outside guidance. Zexthul snorted dismissively. Technological advancement means nothing without wisdom. They will destroy themselves just like all the others. The universe will be safer without them. That is where you are wrong, Morvac said firmly. I propose we make contact. Offer them membership in the Federation. Guide them before they make irreversible mistakes. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several representatives stood and began shouting in their native languages. The translation devices struggled to keep up with the rapid-fire arguments. Absolutely not, roared the Hegemony captain. The founding protocols are clear. No species may join the Federation until they achieve faster-than-light travel on their own. These humans are still centuries away from that milestone. The Korthani ambassador's scales turned a darker shade of red, indicating extreme agitation. Even if we waive the protocols, which we will not, these humans are too dangerous. They wage war over resources, territory, even abstract concepts like religion and ideology. They would bring nothing but chaos to our peaceful union. A new voice cut through the argument like a blade. Commander Thess of the Void Hunters had remained silent until now. Her species were the Federation's elite military force, cold and calculating warriors who had never lost a battle. I have read the reports on human military tactics. They are concerning. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. When the Void Hunters expressed concern about military matters, the entire galaxy listened. During their recent global conflict, they demonstrated strategic thinking that surpasses most Federation species. They coordinated attacks across multiple continents simultaneously. They developed code-breaking technologies that would challenge our own cryptographic systems. Most disturbing of all, they show a willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. No retreat, no surrender, no negotiation. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. In one battle, a small group of humans held off an enemy force 50 times their size for 3 days. They had no hope of survival, no chance of rescue. They fought simply to buy time for others to escape. When the position was finally overrun, they detonated their own ammunition supplies rather than allow the enemy to capture them. The Pixari delegate had turned pale. Such dedication is disturbing. What if they turn such tactics against us? Elder Morvac raised his hand for silence. This is exactly why we must make contact now. While they are still developing, we can guide them, teach them better ways to resolve conflicts. The Federation has maintained peace for 3,000 years. Our diplomatic protocols could help them overcome their violent tendencies. Or, interjected Zexthul darkly, we could simply eliminate the threat before it becomes unmanageable. A few well-placed asteroids could make it look like a natural extinction event. The humans would be gone, and the galaxy would remain safe. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop as the implications of his words sank in. Genocide was not unknown in galactic history, but it was rarely discussed so openly in the Federation Council. Morvac's voice carried the weight of millennia when he spoke. If we choose that path, we become no better than the very monsters we claim to oppose. The humans deserve a chance to prove themselves. I formally request a vote on establishing first contact protocols. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Species after species voiced their concerns, their fears, their hopes for humanity's future. Some argued for immediate intervention, others for complete isolation. A few supported Zexthul's extreme solution, though they were careful not to say so directly. Finally, as the chamber's artificial sun began to dim, indicating the end of the session, the vote was called. One by one, the representatives cast their decisions into the quantum ballot system. When the results appeared in glowing symbols above the crystal table, a collective gasp echoed through the chamber. The vote was nearly unanimous, with only Elder Morvac dissenting. The Federation had chosen to ignore the warning signs from Earth. Humanity would be left alone to either evolve or destroy itself. No contact would be made, no guidance offered, no interference permitted. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, none of them noticed the small monitoring device that had been recording every word. Hidden in the chamber's crystalline walls, the tiny probe had been transmitting everything to a ship waiting in the outer system. Captain Sarah Chen of the human vessel Endeavour smiled grimly as she reviewed the intercepted transmissions. Humanity had been watching the Watchers for longer than anyone suspected. The aliens thought they were so advanced, so superior, but they had made one critical error. They had underestimated human ingenuity. 3 months after the Federation's decision, the first signs of human expansion began appearing on long-range sensors throughout the galaxy. What had started as primitive rocket launches from Earth suddenly became something far more sophisticated. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching as the latest batch of ships prepared for departure. Each vessel was a masterpiece of human engineering, built with technologies that shouldn't have existed for another century, according to alien calculations. "How many today?" asked Director Martinez as he joined her at the reinforced viewport. 15 colony ships, 8 deep space explorers, and 23 mining vessels, Elena replied without looking away from the magnificent sight. The Tau Ceti fleet launches tomorrow, followed by the Proxima Centauri expedition next week. Martinez shook his head in amazement. 6 months ago, our fastest ship could barely reach Mars in reasonable time. Now we're sending colonies to other star systems. The breakthrough came so suddenly. Elena smiled, remembering the day everything changed. Not suddenly, Director. We've been working toward this for decades. The alien surveillance just gave us the final piece of the puzzle. The breakthrough had come from an unexpected source. Dr. James Park, a theoretical physicist working on quantum mechanics, had noticed strange interference patterns in his experiments. After months of investigation, he had traced the source to alien monitoring devices scattered throughout Earth's orbital space. Instead of panicking, Park had done something typically human. He had reverse-engineered the alien technology and improved upon it. Within weeks, human scientists had unlocked faster-than-light communication, followed quickly by FTL propulsion systems that put their creators to shame. "The Corthani are requesting another diplomatic meeting," Martinez said, handing Elena a data pad. "They want to discuss mutual cooperation and peaceful coexistence. Seems they've changed their tune rather quickly." Elena laughed, a sound that held no warmth. "I'm sure they have. Our deep space sensors have detected their patrol fleets pulling back from our expanding territories. They're scared, and they had good reason to be. Human expansion wasn't following any of the predictable patterns that galactic civilizations typically used. Instead of slowly colonizing nearby systems over centuries, humans were leapfrogging across vast distances, establishing outposts in seemingly random locations. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had been listening to their communications for months. Every patrol route, every strategic resource location, every weakness in Federation space had been carefully catalogued and analyzed. Admiral Torres materialized as a hologram beside them, her image crackling slightly from the quantum entanglement communicator. She was commanding the Vanguard fleet from somewhere near the galactic core, impossibly far from Earth. Status report? Admiral, Elena said formally. The Hegemony Warfleet is moving to intercept our Rigel expansion force, Torres replied crisply. 37 ships, including their newest dreadnought. They seem to think overwhelming force will convince us to retreat. Martinez frowned. Our Rigel force only has 12 ships. Can they handle that kind of opposition? Torres grinned, an expression that would have terrified the Hegemony if they could see it. Director, you're thinking like the aliens. They see 12 ships and assume we're outnumbered. They don't understand human tactical doctrine. What the Federation species had failed to grasp was that human military thinking had evolved beyond their comprehension. While they still fought traditional space battles with large fleets facing each other directly, humans had embraced asymmetric warfare on a galactic scale. Each human ship was equipped with technologies that the aliens had never conceived of, cloaking devices that bent spacetime itself, making ships effectively invisible, weapons that could phase through shields by existing in parallel dimensions. Most frightening of all, artificial intelligence systems that could outthink entire alien command structures in real time. The Void Hunters are requesting a meeting, Elena said, reading another message from the datapad. Commander Thess wants to discuss military exchange programs. Apparently they're impressed by our tactical innovations. Declined, Torres said immediately. We don't need their approval or their guidance. Let them figure out our capabilities the hard way. On the main display screen, real-time footage from the Rigel system showed the approaching confrontation. The Hegemony fleet had arranged itself in traditional battle formation, a massive wall of firepower designed to intimidate and overwhelm. The human ships, by contrast, appeared to be scattered randomly throughout the system. To alien eyes, it looked like panic or incompetence. They had no idea they were looking at a three-dimensional chess game played by masters. Hegemony fleet is broadcasting surrender demands, reported the communications officer. They're giving us 10 minutes to withdraw or face destruction. Elena checked her chronometer. Perfect timing. The Centauri mining operation should be completing right about now. Across the galaxy, hidden human ships had been quietly harvesting asteroids and comets, building up massive stockpiles of raw materials. Not for construction projects, as the aliens assumed, but for something far more devastating. The first sign of trouble for the Hegemony came when their sensors detected massive gravitational anomalies throughout the Rigel system. Space itself seemed to be bending and twisting in impossible ways. Commander Vorthak stood on his flagship's bridge, watching the tactical displays with growing concern. What are those humans doing? Our sensors are detecting space-time distortions throughout the system. His tactical officer, a seasoned veteran of dozens of battles, studied the readings with confusion. Sir, it appears they're manipulating gravity fields on a massive scale. But that's impossible. The energy requirements would be... He never finished the sentence. The first artificial black hole materialized directly in the path of the Hegemony Vanguard. 3 ships vanished instantly, crushed beyond recognition by gravitational forces that shouldn't have existed. But that was only the beginning. Throughout the system, tiny singularities began appearing and disappearing in carefully orchestrated patterns. The human ships danced between them with impossible precision, while the Hegemony fleet found itself trapped in a maze of death. All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace, Vorthak screamed into his communicator. It was too late. The humans had thought of that too. Hyperspace inhibitor fields surrounded the entire system, making escape impossible. The Hegemony fleet was trapped with enemies who could reshape reality itself. Within an hour, it was over. 37 alien ships reduced to expanding clouds of debris and energy. The human fleet hadn't suffered a single casualty. Commander Thess received the battle reports in her private quarters aboard the Void Hunter command ship. Her species prided themselves on military excellence, on tactical superiority that had never been challenged. The humans had just made their entire military doctrine obsolete overnight. She activated her personal communicator, bypassing Federation channels entirely. This is Commander Thess requesting immediate private audience with human leadership. Priority Alpha. The response came faster than should have been possible. A calm female voice spoke in perfect Void Hunter dialect, demonstrating linguistic capabilities that shouldn't exist. Commander Thess, we've been expecting your call. Captain Chen will meet you at coordinates we're transmitting now. Come alone, and Commander, disable all recording devices. This conversation never happened. As Thess prepared her personal fighter for the clandestine meeting, she wondered if the Federation had any idea what they had unleashed upon the galaxy. The humans weren't just technologically advanced. They were strategically brilliant, tactically innovative, and utterly ruthless when threatened. The Federation had ignored the warnings about human nature, dismissed them as primitive and harmless. That might prove to be the greatest mistake in galactic history. The meeting between Commander Thess and Captain Chen took place in neutral space, far from any Federation monitoring stations. Two ships hung motionless in the void between galaxies, their crews facing each other across an impossible gulf of understanding. Captain Sarah Chen materialized as a hologram aboard the Void Hunter vessel, her presence somehow more commanding than most beings who stood physically in the room. Thess had expected to meet with a delegation, but the human had come alone, demonstrating either supreme confidence or dangerous recklessness. Commander Thess, Chen said with a slight nod, thank you for accepting our invitation. Though I suspect this isn't entirely social. Thess studied the human carefully. Chen appeared unremarkable by galactic standards. Average height, no obvious weapons, no visible cybernetic enhancements. Yet something in her eyes suggested depths that the Void Hunter couldn't fathom. Your people have made quite an impression on the galaxy, Captain. The Hegemony fleet's destruction has sent shockwaves through every Federation world. How did you develop gravitational manipulation technology so quickly? Chen smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both friendly and predatory. Commander, you're asking the wrong questions. The real question isn't how we developed it, but why we developed it in the first place. I don't understand. Your Federation has been watching us for decades, cataloging our capabilities, debating our fate. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? Did you believe we would simply accept being judged by species that have never faced the challenges we've overcome? Thess felt a chill run down her spine. You've been aware of our surveillance? From the beginning. Human intelligence gathering capabilities exceed anything the Federation possesses. We've been monitoring your communications, studying your technology, learning your weaknesses while you debated whether we deserved to exist. The revelation hit Thess like a physical blow. The Federation's most closely guarded secret was that they had been observing dozens of primitive species throughout the galaxy, waiting to see which ones would survive their technological adolescence. The fact that one of those species had been watching them in return was terrifying. What do you want from me? Thess asked finally. Information. Your people are warriors, the finest soldiers in the galaxy. We respect that. We also know that you're not particularly loyal to the Federation's political leadership. You follow your own code of honor. Chen was right, and they both knew it. The Void Hunters served the Federation because it provided them with worthy battles, not out of any deep philosophical agreement with galactic politics. The Korthani are planning something, Chen continued. Their emperor has been gathering a coalition of the more aggressive Federation species. They believe humanity needs to be contained before we become a larger threat. Thess nodded grimly. Emperor Zexthal has been speaking privately with several military commanders. He claims humans are a virus that will destroy galactic civilization if left unchecked. Many are listening. How many ships? Nearly 2,000 from 7 different species. The largest military force assembled since the Federation's founding. They plan to strike at Earth directly while your colonies are still expanding. Chen's expression didn't change, but Thess sensed something dangerous stirring beneath the surface. When? 6 months, perhaps less. They're waiting for your fleet to be maximally dispersed throughout the galaxy. And what does the Federation Council think of this plan? Thess hesitated. Officially, they know nothing. Unofficially, they're not taking steps to prevent it. The silence that followed lasted almost a full minute. When Chen finally spoke, her voice carried an edge that made the hardened warrior involuntarily step back. Commander, let me tell you something about human nature that your psychological profiles missed. We are not a species that responds well to existential threats. When someone threatens our survival, we don't retreat or negotiate. We escalate. What do you mean? 6 months ago, the human race had barely reached their own moon. Today we have colonies in 47 star systems and technology that can manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. What do you think we'll accomplish in the next 6 months when we know our very existence depends on it? Chen gestured, and the holographic display showed real-time images from human colonies throughout the galaxy. But these weren't the peaceful settlements that Federation intelligence had reported. They were massive industrial complexes, churning out technologies and weapons at impossible speeds. Every human colony is simultaneously a manufacturing center, research facility, and military installation. While your emperor has been planning his attack, we've been preparing for war on a scale your species can't imagine. Thus he studied the images with professional interest. What she saw defied everything she knew about technological development. These production rates are impossible. No species can industrialize this quickly. No alien species, Chen corrected. But humans have certain advantages. We don't require consensus to make decisions. We don't need committee approval to take risks. When our survival is threatened, we can reorganize our entire civilization overnight. More images appeared showing the truth of her words. Human society had indeed transformed itself completely in just a few months. Every person who wasn't directly involved in exploration or colonization had been redirected toward military preparation. Earth itself had become one massive weapon production facility. But this goes beyond mere preparation, Chen continued. We've been studying Federation species for decades now. We know your strengths, your weaknesses, your tactical doctrines. Most importantly, we understand something about galactic civilization that you've forgotten. Which is, you've become soft. The Federation has maintained peace for 3,000 years, but it's the peace of stagnation. Your military forces are designed for deterrence and police actions, not actual warfare. You've forgotten what it means to fight for survival. Thess bristled at the implication. The Void Hunters have never known defeat. Our martial prowess is legendary throughout the galaxy. Against other Federation species following the same obsolete tactical doctrines, yes. But when was the last time you faced an enemy that didn't play by galactic rules? When did you last fight someone who was willing to sacrifice everything for victory? The question hit home because Thess knew the answer. It had been over 1,000 years since the Void Hunters had faced any truly desperate enemy. Their recent conflicts had been carefully managed affairs with predetermined outcomes. The Korthani coalition believes they can intimidate us into submission through overwhelming force, Chen said. They think that if they bring enough ships, we'll surrender rather than face extinction. They're about to learn why that strategy doesn't work against humans. What are you planning? Chen smiled again, and this time there was nothing friendly about it. Commander, humans wrote the book on asymmetric warfare. We perfected guerrilla tactics before we left our planet. We understand that when facing superior numbers, you don't meet them head-on. You force them to fight on your terms. New images appeared showing human defensive preparations that made Thess's blood run cold. Instead of building traditional fortifications, humans had been seeding space itself with hidden weapons platforms. Cloaked mines that could phase between dimensions. Automated systems that could reconstruct themselves after being destroyed. Most terrifying of all, weapons that could turn a star itself into a bomb. The Coalition fleet will come to Earth expecting a traditional battle, Chen explained calmly. They'll find empty space. No human ships to fight, no orbital defenses to destroy, just a small blue planet that looks completely helpless. And then they'll learn what happens when you threaten humanity's home. We've turned our entire solar system into a trap, specifically designed to destroy large fleet formations. The Coalition will jump into what they think is an easy victory and find themselves facing their worst nightmare. Thess realized she was looking at the most elaborate military deception in galactic history. The humans had spent months making themselves look vulnerable, while actually creating the most sophisticated defense network ever conceived. Why are you telling me this? What do you want from the Void Hunters? We want you to survive what's coming. Your people are warriors worth respecting. When the Federation collapses after this debacle, we'll need allies who understand the value of strength. The Federation won't collapse over one military defeat. Chen's expression grew serious. Commander, you're still thinking too small. This won't be one defeat. This will be the moment that 3,000 years of galactic peace comes to an end. The moment that the Federation's illusion of stability shatters permanently. What do you mean? When 2,000 Federation ships disappear without a trace, how do you think the galaxy will react? How many species will question whether they're truly safe under Federation protection? How many will start building their own weapons, forming their own alliances? The implication struck Thess like a thunderbolt. The destruction of such a massive fleet wouldn't just be a military defeat. It would be proof that the Federation's technological superiority was an illusion, that their protective umbrella was worthless against truly determined enemies. "You're not just defend yourselves," she whispered. "You're planning to destroy the NT." Emperor Zexthul stood before the assembled war council in the heart of the Korthani Empire, his forearms gesturing dramatically as he addressed the holographic representations of military leaders from across the galaxy. The chamber itself was a monument to imperial power, carved from a single massive crystal that had taken 1,000 years to grow. "Today, we write the final chapter in the human threat," the Emperor declared, his scaled hide rippling with barely contained excitement. "Our combined fleet represents the greatest military force in galactic history. 7 species, 2,000 ships, enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems." Admiral Korak of the Hegemony nodded approvingly, though the loss of Captain Vorthak's fleet still stung. "The humans showed lucky against one patrol group. They cannot possibly stand against our full might," General Thax of the Crystalline Coalition agreed, his silicon-based form flickering with harmonic approval. "Our intelligence suggests they have fewer than 100 ships total, scattered across dozens of systems. Even their most advanced vessels cannot match our combined technological superiority." Only Fleet Marshal Gorvex of the Saurian Armada showed any hesitation. His species were natural predators, and something about this entire operation triggered his hunting instincts in troubling ways. "Your Majesty, I must voice concern about the ease of our intelligence gathering. The humans have made no attempt to hide their fleet dispositions or defensive preparations. Either they are incredibly naive or they are exactly what our analysis suggests," Zexthul interrupted impatiently. "A primitive species that achieved spaceflight through lucky accidents, not through true understanding. They may have stumbled upon some advanced technologies, but they lack the military wisdom to use them effectively." The Emperor's conviction was shared by most of the Council. Every simulation run by the galaxy's best strategic computers showed the same result. Human forces would be overwhelmed within hours of the attack beginning. The only question was whether any human ships would survive long enough to surrender. "The attack begins in 36 hours, Zexthul announced. "Our fleets will converge on Earth from 7 different vectors, ensuring no escape routes remain open. The human colonies will surrender when they see their homeworld burn, and this threat to galactic stability will be eliminated once and for all." As the holographic meeting dissolved, each military leader returned to their respective flagships to make final preparations. None of them noticed the subtle gravitational anomalies that accompanied their faster-than-light communications, or the fact that every word of their planning session had been intercepted and analyzed by human intelligence networks. Aboard the human command vessel Indomitable, hidden in the space between dimensions, Admiral Torres reviewed the intercepted data with her senior staff. The ship's location was technically impossible according to Federation physics, existing in a parallel reality that overlapped normal space without touching it. 7 attack vectors, just as we predicted, reported Colonel Martinez, the Chief Intelligence Officer. "The Korthani will approach from galactic north, the Hegemony from the southeast. The other 5 fleets are taking positions exactly where our model suggested they would." Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as the fleet's Chief Science Officer, studied the tactical projections with professional satisfaction. "Emperor Zexthul is following standard Federation doctrine perfectly. Overwhelming force applied simultaneously from multiple directions to prevent escape or reinforcement." "And our preparations?" Torres asked. "Complete in all sectors," replied Captain Singh, the engineering chief. "The Sol system is ready to receive visitors. I almost feel sorry for them." What the approaching fleets didn't know was that the Sol system had been transformed into the most sophisticated trap in military history. Every asteroid, every moon, every speck of cosmic dust had been weaponized or turned into a sensor node. The space between planets was filled with invisible networks of force fields, dimensional gates, and autonomous weapon systems. More importantly, the trap had been designed with human psychology in mind. Each approaching fleet would see exactly what they expected to see: a few desperate defensive positions around Earth, some scattered patrol ships, and clear evidence that humanity was vastly outnumbered. The illusion was so perfect that even the most paranoid Federation intelligence analysts would find nothing suspicious about it. Every fake defensive installation was built using recognizably human technology. Every decoy ship transmitted authentic human communications. The deception was flawless because it wasn't really a deception at all. It was a fundamental difference in strategic thinking that alien minds couldn't grasp to signal from Commander Thess, reported the communications officer. The Void Hunters are withdrawing their forces to the designated coordinates. She says, and I quote, "We will remember this day with honor." Torres nodded approvingly. The Void Hunters were the only Federation species that truly understood warfare, and their withdrawal from the Coalition fleet hadn't gone unnoticed. Several other species were asking uncomfortable questions about why the galaxy's premier warriors wanted no part in what should be an easy victory. Time to enemy arrival? 34 hours, 18 minutes. The Crystalline Coalition is running slightly ahead of schedule, but all fleets will arrive within the designated window. Torres walked to the main viewing port, though there was nothing visible in the twisted space they currently occupied. Dr. Vasquez, are you certain about the psychological profiles? Everything depends on the enemy commanders reacting exactly as predicted. Elena smiled confidently. Admiral, human psychology has always been considered aberrant by galactic standards. What they don't understand is that our apparent contradictions are actually our greatest strength. We're simultaneously the most cooperative and most competitive species in the galaxy, meaning, when they see our desperate defensive positions, their pride will demand a crushing victory. They'll want to prove their superiority by overwhelming us completely, rather than accepting a quick surrender. That prideful desire for total victory will keep them in the kill zone long enough for our trap to activate. It was a strategy that only humans could have conceived. Every other species in the galaxy approached warfare logically, seeking the most efficient path to victory. Humans understood that pride, honor, and the desire for dominance often overrode logical thinking. The Federation species were about to discover that their psychological profiles of humanity were dangerously incomplete. 24 hours before the attack, long-range sensors detected the approaching fleets taking their final positions. 2,000 ships arranged in perfect formation, their combined firepower capable of cracking planetary crusts. The sight would have terrified any other species in the galaxy. Humans had a different reaction entirely. "It's beautiful," whispered Captain Park from the bridge of the research vessel Newton. "Look at that formation discipline. They're maintaining perfect intervals across hundreds of thousands of kilometers. The coordination required is extraordinary." "You sound like you admire them," observed his first officer. "I do," Park replied honestly. "They're magnificent warriors following proud military traditions that have served them for millennia. It's a shame we have to destroy them." That casual statement perfectly encapsulated the human approach to warfare. They could simultaneously respect their enemies and plan their complete annihilation without any sense of contradiction. To alien minds, such thinking was incomprehensible. As the final hours ticked away, human forces throughout the galaxy received their orders. Not just military units, but civilian researchers, colonial administrators, and even children in schools. Every human being was part of the coming battle, because that's how their species approached existential threats. They didn't just fight with soldiers. They fought with their entire civilization. On Earth, the last visible defensive preparations were being completed. A few dozen ships took positions around the planet, their weapons powered up and shields activated. Their captains broadcasted defiant messages that were intercepted by Federation intelligence, declaring their intention to defend humanity's homeworld to the last breath. To outside observers, it looked like a doomed but noble last stand, the perfect setup for the kind of crushing victory that would establish Federation dominance permanently. The aliens were about to learn that when humans appeared to be at their most vulnerable, they were actually at their most dangerous. In the depths of space, hidden sensor arrays detected the first enemy ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. The largest fleet in galactic history had arrived to destroy humanity. They had no idea that they had just entered the killing ground of the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever seen. The trap was set. All that remained was to spring it. The first wave of the Coalition fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system in perfect synchronization. 7 massive formations appeared simultaneously, their arrival timed to the nanosecond, despite traveling across thousands of light-years. Emperor Zexthal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching as his tactical displays populated with data from the human system. What he saw confirmed every assumption the Coalition had made about their primitive enemy. Sensors detect 43 human vessels in defensive positions around their homeworld, reported his tactical officer. They appear to be powered orbital defense platforms and a small patrol fleet. No sign of their advanced ships or the gravitational weapons used against the hegemony. Probably fled deeper into the galaxy when they detected our approach, Admiral Korak suggested over the communication link. Cowardly but tactically sound. They're abandoning their homeworld to preserve their military assets. General Thax's crystalline form flickered with satisfaction. The humans are broadcasting surrender terms. They claim they wish to negotiate for the survival of their civilian population. Zexthal's scales rippled with dark amusement. How typical. When faced with overwhelming force, they resort to begging. Open a channel to the human vessels. The main screen shimmered to life, showing a human officer in a military uniform. Captain Rebecca Foster, commander of the Orbital Defense Station Liberty, looked tired but defiant. Her hands were steady as she addressed the massive alien fleet. This is Captain Foster of the Earth Defense Force. Your presence in our system constitutes an act of war. We demand that you withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The assembled alien commanders burst into laughter that translated poorly across their various communication systems. The idea that 43 primitive ships could threaten 2,000 advanced vessels was beyond ridiculous. Human, Zexthal replied with condescending patience. You are facing the combined might of 7 galactic civilizations. Your entire species numbers fewer beings than we have warships. Surrender unconditionally, and your civilians may be permitted to survive under Federation oversight. Foster's expression didn't change. I have consulted with my superiors and with the civilian leadership of Earth. Our response is unanimous. Go to hell. She cut the transmission before any of the aliens could respond. Fleet Marshal Gorvex felt his predatory instincts screaming warnings, but he couldn't identify the source of his unease. Everything about the situation looked exactly as their intelligence had predicted. The humans were outgunned, outnumbered, and clearly desperate. So why did he feel like he was walking into an ambush? All fleets begin advance toward the inner system, Zexthal commanded. Maintain formation integrity. We will demonstrate the price of defying galactic authority. 2,000 ships began moving toward Earth in a display of military might that had never been equaled in recorded history. The combined fleet stretched across millions of kilometers, their weapon systems charging as they approached the human defensive positions. On Earth, Admiral Torres watched the approaching armada from the bridge of a small destroyer orbiting the planet. To any external observer, she appeared to be commanding humanity's last desperate defense. In reality, she was conducting the most complex military operation her species had ever attempted. Enemy fleet has crossed the outer marker, reported her tactical officer. All systems are green and ready. Confirmed contact with dimensional forces, added the science officer. Parallel fleet units are standing by in phase space. Torres nodded calmly. The approaching aliens had no idea that they weren't just facing the few dozen ships they could see. Hidden in parallel dimensions, phased out of normal space-time, an entire human battle fleet waited for the perfect moment to reveal itself. But that was only the beginning of the trap. Signal from the asteroid belt monitoring stations, came another report. Mining operations are complete and ready for activation. What looked like ordinary asteroid mining to Federation sensors was actually something far more sinister. Human engineers had been busy converting space rocks into kinetic weapons, using alien surveillance to hide the true scope of their preparations. Every piece of debris larger than a baseball in the Sol system had been equipped with miniature drives and guidance systems. The asteroids weren't just rocks anymore. They were bullets in the galaxy's largest shotgun. Enemy fleet is approaching the Mars orbital zone, the tactical officer announced. Formation integrity holding. They're following standard Federation assault doctrine. Torres smiled grimly. Standard Federation doctrine assumed that the enemy would fight according to the same rules. It never accounted for opponents who were willing to turn an entire star system into a weapon. Dr. Vasquez, status on the solar collectors? All stations report ready, Admiral. We can initiate stellar manipulation on your command. The most terrifying aspect of humanity's trap wasn't the hidden fleets or the weaponized asteroids. It was what they had done to the sun itself. Using gravitational manipulation technology reverse-engineered from alien surveillance devices, human scientists had turned Earth's star into a controllable energy weapon. The Coalition fleet had no idea they were flying into the barrel of a gun that could fire solar flares with pinpoint accuracy. Distance to target, 5 million kilometers and closing. They'll be within optimal engagement range in 18 minutes. Torres activated her personal communication device, sending a coded signal that would reach every human ship, station, and colony in the galaxy simultaneously. The message was simple. Omega Protocol is now active. Across human space, the response was immediate. Every civilian facility began transmitting surrender messages. Every colony declared its intention to capitulate to Federation authority. To outside observers, it appeared that humanity was collapsing in the face of superior force. The reality was that humanity was pulling its civilian population back from the front lines while military assets moved into final attack positions. Enemy fleet has entered the engagement zone, reported the tactical officer. Coalition commanders are broadcasting final surrender demands. On screen, Emperor Zexthul appeared again, his expression radiating smug satisfaction. Humans, you have demonstrated admirable courage but poor judgment. This is your final opportunity to surrender with honor. Refuse, and we will be forced to demonstrate why our species have ruled the galaxy for millennia. This time, it was Admiral Torres who responded personally. Emperor Zexthul, this is Admiral Sarah Torres of the Human Colonial Defense Force. I want you to understand something very important before this begins. Speak quickly, human. My patience grows thin. When this is over, when your fleets are nothing but expanding clouds of debris, I want you to remember that we tried to warn you. The Federation Council was told that humans respond poorly to existential threats. You were advised that our species doesn't surrender when cornered. Torres leaned forward, her eyes reflecting a coldness that made several alien commanders unconsciously step back from their screens. You chose to ignore those warnings. You dismissed us as primitive, as harmless, as unworthy of consideration. That decision is about to cost you everything. Enough, Zexthul roared. All ships, open fire. Destroy every human vessel in this system. 2,000 Federation ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. The space around Earth lit up with energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and gravitational warheads. The combined firepower was enough to glass a planet, concentrated on the few dozen human ships that stood in their way. For a moment, it seemed like the massacre everyone expected. Human vessels disappeared in brilliant explosions, their shields overwhelmed by the incredible volume of fire. Within minutes, all visible human resistance had been eliminated. Target eliminated, reported the Korthani tactical officer. All human vessels destroyed. No life signs detected. The alien commanders allowed themselves a moment of satisfaction. The threat to galactic stability had been eliminated with minimal losses. The humans had been brave but foolish, just as predicted. That satisfaction lasted exactly 37 seconds. The first sign of trouble came when the debris from the destroyed human ships began to move. Instead of drifting randomly as wreckage should, the scattered metal fragments started forming geometric patterns around the alien fleet. Emperor, the tactical officer said nervously, the debris field is exhibiting organized movement. These readings are impossible. What the aliens had destroyed weren't actually human ships at all. They were sophisticated holographic projections backed by programmed matter that could reshape itself at the molecular level. The wreckage was actually a control network that had just surrounded the entire Coalition fleet. Detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system, reported another officer, his voice rising in panic. Gravitational anomalies appearing on all sensors. Something is manipulating space-time on a scale we've never seen. Emperor Zexthul felt the first stirrings of real fear as he watched his tactical displays transform into a nightmare of impossible readings. Where are these energy signatures coming from? The answer came as the space around his fleet began to twist and warp. Hidden dimensional gates opened throughout the battle zone, and through them poured what defied every. The moment Admiral Torres finished speaking, hell erupted in the Sol system. What had been empty space around the Coalition fleet suddenly filled with weapons that existed in dimensions the aliens couldn't even perceive. Phase-shifted missile swarms materialized inside enemy shields. bypassing defenses that had never failed in 3,000 years of warfare. Emperor Zexithol watched in horror as his flagship's supposedly impenetrable barriers meant nothing against weapons that attacked from parallel realities. Shields are useless. These weapons are phasing through our defenses, but the dimensional attacks were only the beginning. Throughout the system, the weaponized asteroids activated simultaneously. Millions of rocks, each no larger than a house, suddenly accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. The asteroid belt became a storm of kinetic projectiles that turned space itself into a killing field. Admiral Korak's dreadnought, pride of the hegemony fleet, vanished in a cloud of superheated metal as 3 asteroids struck it within milliseconds of each other. The massive ship's armor, designed to withstand the largest plasma cannons ever built, proved useless against simple rocks moving at relativistic speeds. How is this possible? General Thax transmitted, his crystalline form flickering with panic as his formation disintegrated around him. The energy requirements for this level of kinetic bombardment should be impossible. Dr. Elena Vasquez, monitoring the battle from her command center on Luna, smiled as she watched the alien confusion. They still don't understand. We're not powering these weapons with fusion reactors or antimatter. We're using the rotational energy of the planets themselves. The truth was even more audacious than the aliens could imagine. Human engineers had tapped directly into the angular momentum of the solar system's worlds, turning orbital mechanics into a weapon delivery system. Every shot fired was powered by stealing infinitesimal amounts of rotational energy from Mars, Jupiter, and the other planets. The scale of engineering required was beyond anything attempted in galactic history. Fleet Marshal Gorvex is requesting emergency reinforcements, reported a communications officer. His formation has lost 60% effectiveness in the first 10 minutes. Fleet Marshal Gorvex, the only coalition commander whose predatory instincts had warned him of danger, was fighting for his life as his Saurian armada faced weapons that seemed to anticipate his every move. Every time he repositioned his ships, the human weapons were already waiting for them. These humans are reading our tactical decisions before we make them, he transmitted in growing desperation. They know our maneuvers before we execute them. He was correct, though he didn't understand how. Human artificial intelligence systems had been analyzing Federation military tactics for months, learning the decision trees that alien commanders used in combat situations. The AI could predict their responses with over 90% accuracy. It was like fighting an enemy who could see the future. All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace. Zexthil commanded as his formation crumbled around him. We need to regroup and reassess. The order was transmitted across the fleet, and 2,000 ships attempted to flee simultaneously. For a moment, it seemed like the retreat would succeed. Hyperspace gates began opening as the surviving vessels prepared to escape. Then Admiral Torres played her final card. Dr. Vasquez, initiate solar cascade protocol. The sun itself erupted, using gravitational manipulation technology that the aliens had never imagined possible. Human scientists triggered a controlled solar flare of unprecedented magnitude. The star's fury reached out across the solar system in a wave of charged particles and electromagnetic radiation that turned hyperspace into a death trap. Ships attempting to jump to faster than light speeds found themselves trapped between dimensions as the solar storm interfered with their engines. Some vessels were torn apart by gravitational shear. Others emerged from hyperspace as expanding clouds of plasma. The lucky one simply exploded cleanly. Hyperspace is compromised, screamed the Korthani tactical officer. All jump engines are offline. We're trapped in the system. Emperor Zexthol felt true terror for the first time in his long life as he realized the scope of the trap his fleet had entered. The humans hadn't just prepared defenses. They had turned their entire star system into a prison designed specifically to destroy large fleet formations. Sir, his science officer reported with barely controlled panic, I'm reading massive gravitational anomalies throughout the system. The humans appear to be manipulating space-time on the scale of stellar engineering. What the officer was detecting was the activation of humanity's most ambitious project. Using techniques learned from studying alien surveillance technology, human engineers had been quietly installing gravitational manipulation devices throughout the Sol system for months. They had turned their solar system into a gravity well that could be shaped and directed like a weapon. All remaining ships formed defensive perimeter around Earth, Zexthal ordered desperately. If we can reach the planet's surface, they can't use these massive weapons without destroying their own homeworld. It was sound tactical thinking by galactic standards. Taking hostages was a time-honored way to neutralize superior firepower. The Emperor had no way of knowing that he was dealing with a species that had once fought wars where millions died to prevent their enemies from taking a single city. Admiral Torres watched the alien fleet's desperate attempt to reach Earth with cold professional interest. They're trying to use our planet as a shield. Clever, but they don't understand human psychology. Should we intercept them before they reach orbital range? Asked her tactical officer. Negative. Let them come. They're about to receive their final lesson in human warfare. As the surviving coalition ships approached Earth's orbit, they found themselves facing the planet's actual defenses for the first time. Not the holographic projections they had destroyed earlier, but real weapon systems that had been hidden beneath the planet's surface. Earth's moon split open like a flower, revealing the largest weapon ever constructed by any species in galactic history. The Luna Cannon was a particle accelerator built into the moon's core, powered by the gravitational differential between Earth and its satellite. The weapon's first shot vaporized an entire crystalline coalition squadron. The beam was so powerful that it punched through space-time itself, creating a temporary wormhole that deposited the squad's remains in a parallel dimension. "What have we done?" whispered General Tax as his surviving ships fled from the impossible weapons. "What manner of monsters have we awakened?" The question echoed across the coalition fleet as their commanders finally understood the magnitude of their mistake. They hadn't attacked a primitive species. They had challenged an apex predator that had been pretending to be prey. Emperor Zexathal's flagship, the mighty Eternal Dominion, lasted longer than most. Its advanced shields and heavy armor allowed it to survive direct hits from weapons that were turning other ships into atomic gas. But even the mightiest fortress couldn't withstand the focused attention of humanity's war machine. The end came when a human destroyer, barely a tenth the size of the Corthani flagship, rammed directly through the Eternal Dominion shields using some kind of dimensional phasing technology. The small ship materialized inside the larger vessel's hull and detonated its entire antimatter supply. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface as the largest ship in the coalition fleet became a brief new star. Within 4 hours of the battle's beginning, it was over. 2,000 Federation ships had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris and energy. Not a single human vessel had been lost, because most of the human fleet had never been in physical danger to begin with. The aliens had been fighting shadows and holograms, while the real weapons attacked from dimensions they couldn't access. Commander, Tess of the Void Hunters watched the aftermath from her hidden observation post at the edge of the system. Her species had refused to participate in the attack, sensing that something about the entire operation felt wrong. Now she understood why her warrior instincts had screamed warnings. "Signal Admiral Torres," she commanded her communications officer. "Request permission to approach under flag of truce." "Are you certain, Commander?" "The Federation will consider any communication with the humans an act of treason." Tess looked at the debris field that had once been the galaxy's most powerful fleet and made a decision that would reshape the fate of her people. "The Federation is finished. Today proved that their technological superiority was an illusion. Any species that could do this to 2,000 ships won't be stopped by political protocols." Minutes later, her message reached Admiral Torres on the bridge of the human flagship. "Admiral, this is Commander Tess of the Void Hunters. I formally request asylum for my people and offer our services to humanity. We recognize strength when we see it." Torres accepted the communication, studying the alien warrior with professional respect. "Commander, you and your people will be welcome among us. Warriors should stand together." As news of the battle reached human colonies throughout the galaxy, celebrations erupted on dozens of worlds. Humanity had faced its first major test as a galactic power and emerged triumphant. But Admiral Torres knew that the real war was just beginning. The Federation would not accept this defeat quietly. Other species would demand explanations, seek revenge, or try to acquire human weapons technology for themselves. The galaxy was about to discover that awakening humanity had consequences that would echo for millennia to come. The warning had been ignored. Now everyone would live with the results. 6 months after the destruction of the Coalition fleet, The Galactic Federation Council convened an emergency session for the final time in its 3,000-year history. The Great Crystal Chamber that had once housed debates about peaceful exploration and cultural exchange now echoed with accusations, threats, and the desperate schemes of a dying political order. Elder Morvac, the only council member who had warned against ignoring humanity, stood before the assembled representatives with the weight of centuries in his ancient eyes. His people, the Zephyrians, had withdrawn from Federation space entirely after the Sol System massacre, seeking neutrality in what they recognized as the beginning of a new galactic age. The motion before us today, Morvac announced with profound sadness, is the complete military mobilization of all Federation member species for the purpose of eliminating the human threat permanently. Before we vote, I would remind you all that this is the same path that led to our current catastrophe. The response was immediate and angry. Representatives from dozens of species rose to voice their outrage, their fear, and their demands for immediate action. The humans have become a cancer that threatens all civilized life, declared the new Corthani representative, a young emperor who had taken power after his predecessor's death in the Sol system. They have weapons that can destroy fleets, turn stars into weapons, and manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. Every day we delay gives them time to grow stronger. Delegate Pixari of the diminutive Pixari Federation trembled as she spoke. Our analysis of the battle data is terrifying. The humans didn't just defeat our fleet, they toyed with it. They could have destroyed the coalition ships instantly, but chose to demonstrate their capabilities slowly, methodically. They wanted us to understand how hopeless resistance would be. She was correct, though she didn't fully grasp the implications. Human military planners had indeed orchestrated the battle to send a specific message to the galaxy. Every weapon revealed, every tactical innovation displayed, had been carefully chosen to demonstrate that traditional Federation military doctrine was obsolete. The naive, psychological warfare had been devastatingly effective. Our intelligence networks report massive human expansion throughout the galaxy, added General Kravox of the Mantrid. Hives. They now control over 200 star systems, and their technological advancement continues to accelerate. Some reports suggest they can now construct megastructures around entire stars within weeks. What the general didn't mention was that most of his intelligence networks had been compromised by human counter-espionage operations. The humans were allowing the Federation to see exactly what they wanted them to see. Enough truth to inspire fear, mixed with enough misdirection to hide their real capabilities. The worst part, contributed Ambassador Zelak of the Aquatic Coalition, is that they're not conquering through force. Dozens of species are voluntarily joining the human sphere of influence. They're offering technology, protection, and economic opportunities that we cannot match. This was the development that truly terrified the Federation leadership. Military conquest could be resisted, but voluntary defection was impossible to stop. The humans had done something no galactic power had ever accomplished. They had made their enemies want to join them. The secret was simple, but revolutionary. Instead of demanding tribute or political submission, humans offered partnership. Species that allied with humanity gained access to technologies, trade opportunities, and defensive guarantees that the Federation had never provided. Most importantly, humans treated their allies as equals rather than subjects. We have two choices, Elder Morvac said when the chamber finally quieted. We can attempt another military assault, knowing that it will likely fail even more catastrophically than the last one. Or we can accept that the galaxy has changed and try to find a place for ourselves in the new order. The vote that followed was closer than anyone expected. Fear of human power was balanced against the practical reality that the Federation no longer had the military strength to challenge them effectively. Nearly half the remaining member species chose neutrality rather than war, but the hardliners won by a narrow margin. The Federation would mobilize every remaining ship, every weapon, every soldier for one final assault on human space. It would be the largest military operation in galactic history, dwarfing even the coalition fleet that had been destroyed at Sol. As the representatives filed out to begin preparing for war, none of them noticed the small figure watching from the observation gallery. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as humanity's chief diplomatic officer, had been present for the entire session through a combination of holographic technology and dimensional manipulation that made Federation security systems irrelevant. She activated her personal communicator as she walked through the corridors of the Federation capital, past alien beings who had no idea they were in the presence of their greatest enemy. Admiral Torres, this is Dr. Vasquez. The vote has been confirmed. They're going to try again. Torres's response came instantly through quantum entanglement communication. Estimated force deployment? Everything they have left. Approximately 8,000 ships from 37 different species. They're calling it Operation Final Dawn. How poetic. When do they plan to attack? 18 months minimum. They need time to retrofit their fleets with new weapons technologies and coordinate logistics across multiple galactic sectors. The hegemony is demanding new shield configurations that can allegedly resist our dimensional weapons. Torres laughed, a sound that would have chilled the blood of every Federation leader if they could have heard it. Let them have their 18 months. We can accomplish quite a lot in that time. What the Federation didn't understand was that their year and a half of preparation time was actually a gift to humanity. While alien engineers struggled to develop countermeasures for technologies they barely comprehended, human science had moved far beyond anything demonstrated at Sol. The battle at Earth had showcased first-generation human weapons, impressive enough to destroy a large fleet but primitive compared to what was now possible. 18 months would give human researchers time to perfect technologies that would make their previous achievements look like children's toys. Any word from our allied species? Torres asked. The Void Hunters have completed their integration into our military structure. Commander Thess reports that her people are adapting well to human tactical doctrine. The Zephyrians have formally recognized our territorial claims and are requesting defensive agreements. 17 other species have submitted applications for full alliance status. The transformation of galactic politics had been swift and decisive. Species that had spent millennia following Federation leadership suddenly found themselves with better options. Human offers of technological advancement, military protection, and equal partnership were proving irresistible. What about the civilian populations on Federation worlds? Mass emigration continues. Our transport ships can't keep up with the demand for relocation to human space. Entire planetary populations are requesting asylum, especially the younger generations. They see what we're building out here and want to be part of it. This exodus was perhaps the most damaging blow to Federation authority. When billions of beings voluntarily abandoned their homeworlds to join human civilization, it sent a clear message about which side offered a better future. Dr. Vasquez, I want you to return to Earth immediately. We're implementing Project Transcendence ahead of schedule. Elena felt a chill of excitement. Project Transcendence was humanity's most ambitious undertaking, a technological leap that would fundamentally alter their species' relationship with the universe itself. Are you certain we're ready? The theoretical frameworks are still being tested. The Federation is giving us 18 months to prepare for their final assault. By the time they arrive, they won't be fighting the same species that destroyed their first fleet. They'll be facing something that no galactic civilization has ever encountered. As Elena made her way to the hidden human ship that would take her home, she reflected on how completely the balance of galactic power had shifted. 6 months ago, humanity had been an unknown species facing extinction. Now they were the dominant force in the galaxy, with former enemies begging to join their alliance. But she knew that Admiral Torres was right about one thing. The final battle with the Federation would be different from anything that had come before. Not because of superior weapons or better tactics, but because humanity itself was evolving at an unprecedented rate. The species that had once struggled to reach their own moon was on the verge of transcending the physical limitations that bound all other galactic civilizations. They were becoming something new, something that the universe had never seen. When the Federation fleet finally arrived for their ultimate confrontation, they would discover that their enemy was no longer quite human in any sense they could understand. The warnings had been ignored, the first fleet destroyed, and the galaxy transformed. Now came the final lesson in the consequences of underestimating humanity. It would be a lesson that echoed throughout the cosmos for eons to come, long after the last Fae